It was a rainy night in Kunming, the capital of Yunnan Province. The neon lights reflected off the wet pavement as a black Toyota Land Cruiser cruised down the street. At the wheel was a man who seemed ordinary at first glance. His well-worn suit, calm demeanor, and the patient way he navigated the city's winding roads made him blend in with the other chauffeurs driving through the rain. But Zhou Zhonghui was far from ordinary. The man behind the wheel wasn't just a driver. He was known as Secretary Zhou to the elite circles of Kunming, a man of shadowy influence and connections that stretched across the province. His story was one of ambition, deceit, and the corrupting allure of power, a tale that could only unfold in the paradoxical world of modern China, where extraordinary tales of privilege and corruption seemed to thrive in the shadows of an opaque system. As Zhou drove, his mind wandered to how it had all begun. He wasn't always this man of mystery and power. Born in a small village, he had once been a soldier, proud and honest, dreaming of serving his country with honor. Little did he know that his journey from military life to driving an official car would lead him into the heart of China's vast and corrupt political machine. Zhou's rise to power began with a single phone call, an ordinary day, back in the early 2000s. At that time, Zhou was just a chauffeur for a provincial leader, driving guests around Kunming. One afternoon, a traffic jam threatened to delay a VIP's trip to the airport. Zhou, fearing the consequences of a late arrival, hesitantly called the secretary of the provincial governor. "Leave it to me," the secretary had said. Within minutes, traffic police arrived. The jam miraculously cleared. The once gridlocked roads were now empty, with police officers directing traffic, allowing Zhou's car to sail smoothly to the airport. The feeling of being able to command such a force, with just one call, was intoxicating. It was then that Zhou first tasted the allure of power. That night, as Zhou replayed the events in his mind, a thought took root in him. What else could be achieved through connections? A mere driver like him, a man with no official title, had just wielded the invisible hand of power. And so, a new chapter in his life began, one marked by relentless ambition. It wasn't long before Zhou's ambitions grew. As a driver, he overheard conversations, witnessed deals behind closed doors, and began to understand how things worked in China's political and business spheres. There were favors, unspoken rules, and hidden exchanges that shaped everything from construction projects to school admissions. Zhou's access to powerful individuals allowed him to network with officials and businessmen alike. Soon, he wasn't just driving them around. He was arranging introductions, brokering deals, and quietly building a reputation as someone who could get things done. In 2004, Zhou took a bold step. He paid a local businessman 200,000 yuan to secure a minor position as the party secretary of the provincial office's car service unit. It wasn't a major title by any means, but it was enough to enhance his credibility. People didn't question why a mere driver was suddenly living in a villa or driving luxury cars. They didn't ask how Zhou managed to build relationships with top officials. All they knew was that Zhou could make things happen. Zhou's newfound influence opened the doors to more lucrative opportunities. Local businessmen who wanted approvals, permits, or access to government contracts came to him. They knew Zhou wasn't a high-ranking official, but his connections with those in power made him a valuable asset. The pattern was simple. Zhou would take a request, perhaps for the approval of a mining license or a real estate deal, and pass it along to one of his contacts within the government. Once the deal was secured, Zhou would take his cut, splitting the bribes with his associates. His most profitable arrangement came when he partnered with a businessman named Cui Libin. Cui was skilled at managing relationships with government officials, and together they built a network of influence. Zhou's role was simple: introduce Cui to officials, and Cui would handle the bribes and negotiations. In one notable case, Zhou helped a coal mine owner reduce his resource usage fees by millions of yuan in exchange for a bribe. Zhou's share of the deal was a cool 80,000 yuan, of which he kept the majority, giving only a small portion to Cui. This arrangement became their modus operandi. Working together, they orchestrated deals that funneled millions of yuan into their pockets. As Zhou's wealth grew, so did his sense of invincibility. He had surrounded himself with a loyal group of cronies, and he was careful to maintain good relations with the higher-ups. His connections protected him from scrutiny, allowing him to continue his illicit activities without fear of consequences. Zhou's story was not unique, however. He was merely one player in a larger game, a game that revealed the deep flaws in China's political system. In a country where the Communist Party controls every aspect of life, power is concentrated at the top, and those who serve the powerful often find themselves wielding influence far beyond their official roles. For Zhou, the system allowed him to blur the lines between official duties and personal gain. The lack of transparency and oversight meant that his corrupt activities went unnoticed for years. Zhou's story was a reflection of the broader problems facing China's political system, problems that arise when power is unchecked and accountability is non-existent. The system, with its emphasis on loyalty to the party, created an environment where officials and their allies could exploit their positions for personal gain, all while operating under the radar. Zhou's downfall came in 2020, not through any internal investigation or ethical revelation, but because he finally made a mistake. In a particularly ambitious deal, he attempted to orchestrate a massive land development project in a sensitive ecological zone. His carelessness drew attention, and an anti-corruption investigation was launched. As investigators dug deeper into Zhou's activities, they uncovered a vast web of bribery, fraud, and influence peddling. Zhou had received over 9 million yuan in bribes over the course of a decade, most of which had been funneled through Chui's network. Zhou was arrested, and his once powerful network quickly disintegrated as his associates distanced themselves from the scandal. The court proceedings were swift, and the sentence was harsh. Zhou was convicted on multiple counts of bribery, influence peddling, and corruption. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison, his fortune seized by the state. The once mighty Secretary Zhou was now a disgraced figure, his name synonymous with the darker side of China's political landscape. Zhou's story is emblematic of the challenges facing China today. It is a country that has experienced rapid economic growth and modernization, but its political system remains deeply flawed. The concentration of power in the hands of a few has created an environment where corruption thrives and where individuals like Zhou can exploit their positions for personal gain. In a system without checks and balances, where the rule of law is subordinate to the will of the party, corruption is not an aberration. It is a natural outcome. Zhou's rise and fall highlight the need for reform, for greater transparency, and for a system that holds individuals accountable for their actions. For the people of China, Zhou's story is a reminder that in the absence of a robust legal framework, those in power and their drivers can wield immense influence, often with disastrous consequences for society as a whole. The question that remains is whether China's political system can evolve to address these challenges, or whether stories like Zhou's will continue to play out in the shadows of a country where power remains unchecked and unregulated.